It is an absolutely beautiful morning. It's purely delightful. And I'm just after reading some lovely emails I got. And yes, I do agree. I do agree that sometimes just to film this and to say nothing and let Mother Earth speak. Let her do the talking. I'm just having my coffee actually. So I'm just going to sit down and before I do, let me just show you something quite delightful. Now look at this. The roses are about to burst bloom. But also I want to show you this. Can you see the little bits of green fly on those rosebuds? Do I do anything? No, I don't. Because in a very short space of time, that green fly is gone. Because of course there's lots of little predatory insects and birds will feed off that green fly. And it's on about half of the rosebuds. Right? So it's a sign of health, of course, that the green fly is on about half the rosebuds. You can see some of them are perfectly clear, some of them have the green fly on. But I just leave them. I just let them be. Because you see, what we forget, this is so important to remember when helping Mother Earth to be abundant. What we forget is that everything that she produces is for a reason. Everything is for a reason. Our mistake, I'll just sit down now with this camera. Our mistake in our arrogance, just set this camera down. I point it that way so it's not pointing directly into the rising sun. So I'm a wee bit sniffly because I've been listening to the news and got a little bit upset. But our mistake is that in our arrogance, we do believe that we're in control and that the green fly is not wanted and therefore we must go and kill it. Whereas if we can manage through hard work and endeavour to get an ecosystem established that is as abundant as she wants it to be, as she needs it to be, then everything ostensibly takes care of itself, or so it would appear. But in actual fact, what we're doing is we're putting everything into place for Mother Earth to have the very best health. Now, a good analogy of this is to look at a human being. Doctors are notorious for trying to treat illnesses with prescription drugs and surgery. And they are ignoring what is in essence the oath that they swore, the Hippocratic Oath. The Hippocratic Oath comes from Hippocrates, and Hippocrates' famous words, and I may be paraphrasing a little, was simply, how did it go? Let medicine, let me see, how did it go? Let food be thy medicine and medicine thy food. Or something like that. Doctors, of course, as we all know, or should be aware of, have little or no training in dietary nutrition. And yet dietary nutrition is what makes us the people we are. Almost overall. Yes, environment impacts upon us as well. But dietary nutrition is essential for good health. And when we're fed as many, you know, a really broad range of foods, and personally I believe that that should not include dead flesh, but and for me that works, but each to their own. And some of my family eat meat as well, so that's okay, that's no problem. Everyone's on their own path, their own journey. But for me, to eat as wide a range of foods as possible, put as many colours and textures and whatever onto your plate, that is similar to how what you see through this camera lens now is to good health. So when it comes to the green fly on the rosebuds, that's part and parcel of what Mother Earth is providing in terms of food for all her life. It doesn't interfere with the incredible display of pink roses, which I relish to see and to smell and to just bathe in, almost literally. I don't have a bath, but you get my meaning, each May. Now, I get to see all this and enjoy it. Why on earth would I want to go and spray, kill anything on those roses? And in fact, the whole idea of killing anything is an anathema to me. I don't get it. Now, if you had have asked me 10 years ago, I'd have said, oh yeah, well, you know, yeah, I understand that, this is how it goes. Actually, as I've got older, the whole idea of destroying anything or killing anything or not assisting all that beautiful plant life out there just seems to go against the grain. So I'm very much in favour of not spraying, not even spraying with soap and water. And years ago I did spray green fly with soap and water, but I realise as well that was probably all I could do, because I would have had a very closed environment in my garden. So it was a closed environment in terms of I sort of controlled the amount of species that lived in there. And if you try and control the amount of species that live in a garden, then you're not embracing a full and abundant ecosystem. And it is that full and abundant ecosystem that gives the best health. So the whole idea of monoculture now, to me, seems actually not just wrong, but morally wrong. Morally wrong. Our journey on this beautiful earth is far too short for us to be morally culpable or responsible in any way, shape or form for implementing monoculture or supporting monoculture. And it was one of the first issues that flagged up to me the monoculture of the mind of the bureaucrats in the EU and in most agricultural departments within governments. I became aware in I think it was it was about 2004 when I began the Bealtaine Project, And you see, the first few years I was working physically very, very hard, probably harder than what I should have worked. But I was driven, you know, and I'm still here, so it didn't do me any harm. But I became aware of what the EU policy had dictated and then implemented here in Ireland, which was the destruction of the Irish hedgerows. They paid farmers, they actually paid them, they paid Irish farmers to rip out hedgerows, to rip them out. I mean, that's a crime. That's an ecocidal crime. And this was to make the fields bigger, so they could get bigger machinery onto the fields. This was in a land where there was a lot of rain, and the consequences of getting bigger machinery onto fields, onto wet fields, was that the heaviness of that machinery compressed and compacted the soil, pushing out the air and the oxygen in the soil and thus depleting it. Because if you suffocate something, it's not going to live. Maybe that was too simple for people to understand. I could have shown them how that worked. I could have taken one of those EU officials and slowly suffocated him to show just what happens when you suffocate anything. They die, except I wouldn't have gone the full hog, of course. You know, I would have stopped at the last minute and allowed the gasping idiot to once more breathe in the wonderful air from Mother Earth. But actually it's no laughing matter, because what they did and what many farmers were complicit in. They should really have listened to their gut instinct. They should not have prostituted their land for, you know, 30 pieces of silver, which is what many of them did. And the consequences are with us today, because we now have fields which are, you know, 4 to 6 times the size that nature wants them to be. Or no, not that nature wants them to be, that nature's carrying capacity is at. And many of those fields are just infested with rushes. And the land has become degraded, and then the EU marches in and says, okay, this is now poor land, so here's massive grants to plant Sitka spruce. And you are looking at poor land. Can you see it? No, I can't see it either. Just abused. So this is the chair kind of creaking a wee bit. So I'm just going to take this camera and got some lovely fennel coming up there. And there's the lovely flowers on the London Pride opened up. She says it far better than me. You know, even if you had a very small garden, like this is the little garden I call the side garden, right? If you plant it as a woodland garden, you've got virtually no work to do at all. There's no work to do here. Just enjoy it. I must show you this. This is a little... in the early days, 2004, 2005, when, you know, I was planting, but of course everything was just a few inches off the ground. There was nothing to see. What I did, when I went to the seashore, when I went down to the Atlantic Ocean, if I found any little bits of driftwood, I brought them back. And little bits of cement that I'd left over, you know, from doing the tiled floor in the cottage, I'd bring outside, and in this instance, it was about a third of a bucket of cement or something like that. Now you can't actually see the stones because they're covered with moss now, but basically I put two pieces of wood, you can just see, one is going that way and one coming up from that way, so they're leaning together, and I just cemented them in place with little stones. You can just see it down there. So you can see, I'll just pull back. Okay, can you see it now? So this was like a little garden sculpture. I mean, it didn't cost anything to make. And then one of my grandsons popped there's a little marble, I'll just get it, there we go, little marble in there, isn't that beautiful? And now of course it's become part of nature. So something that was being washed up from the ocean, little piece of dead wood, preserved by the salt water, has become part of what is now a living structure. Isn't that amazing? You just see the stone down in there, you see it? And now there's moss and this beautiful ivy is creeping up it, look at that. You know, nature creates such beauty. And this is absolutely divine. And I don't say those words lightly, because I believe in the divine. Look at this, that's gorgeous. So this is a tiny little space. This little garden here is about, it's no more than about 20 feet by 20 feet. And you see the trees shaded, and so you're getting this beautiful little woodland floor beginning to emerge. You can plant little plants that seem to like dappled shade. And you see even this beautiful buddleia here. See the ivy growing up it? And that's because I don't go in pruning it every year. I prune it every 3 or 4 years sometimes. And here we have a part of the buddleia, dead bit, look, and I put a big shell onto it. It's a beautiful big shell. So look how easy it is to create, to co-create, should I say, a garden with Mother Earth. Now look at this, this is the little cotoneaster here, which has grown from a seed that's been dropped. So the garden has become a regenerative woodland garden. And that's an old bench I made from hammering in 2 little fence posts that I cut in half and nailing on an old piece of timber on the top. And of course it's now just a little, like a little sculpture. This here is an alder tree, which I had to keep pruning because it was so fast growing, and eventually it was being shaded out, and so I cut it out, but I've kept it because there was an old mirror that I'd put onto it. Can you see the mirror? The tree is sort of growing over the mirror. So I've just stood it up there against the beech tree. And there we go. This is the other side of it. So I planted a box, which of course has just become a huge shrub. And it's now a little woodland path. There we go. I shall go in and upload this little video. And blessings to you all. And yes, it would be fantastic if you subscribe to this channel. It's much appreciated. Of course, there's no advertisements on this channel, and there won't be advertisements all the time that I have any say in it. And the same with the website, bealtainecottage.com. No advertising. Advertisements are ghastly. Imagine trying to promote the interests of Mother Earth, and just as you're listening, you know, to the sounds of the wind through the trees, a big advertisement comes up on the screen for Monsanto. That's basically what I want to avoid. Anyway, it'd be lovely if you subscribed. There are links underneath this video to the website, and also links to the books. I have written some books, and the links are underneath. And that's my income. Blessings to you all.